Kuzu Zampo and a very warm welcome to all our viewers. This is BBS Channel 2 and I'm your host for the next 1 hour Karma Dendrup. This is your weekly dose of Buddhism, the Jangchub Shing. And this episode is being filmed in the very beautiful, and as the name of the place itself goes, peaceful Shiwaling Resort. Now that we are 24/7, should you miss any of our programs, then you can watch the programs the following day. For our program schedule, please log on to our website www.bbs.bt/bbs2. For those of you who are watching this program for the first time, I would like to inform you that what we do on this program is that we discuss Buddhist truths and principles in an effort to better comprehend the vast and profound Buddha Dharma. This is a very special episode, and I've had the honor and privilege of interviewing our guest before. Without wasting any more of our 1 hour, our guest on this show is Dr. Robert Thurman. Welcome to our show, La.
Thank you, Commandant Blood. Nice to be here.
Las. A little about our guest. Dr. Robert Thurman is the J. Tsongkhapa Professor of Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Studies in the Department of Religion at Columbia University, President of the Tibet House in the US, and the President of the American Institute of Buddhist Studies, dedicated to the publication of the translations of the important texts from the Tibetan Tenjur. Time magazine chose Dr. Thurman as one of its 25 most influential Americans in 1997, describing Dr. as a larger-than-life scholar, activist, destined to convey the Dharma, the precious teachings of Siddhartha from Asia to America. And without wasting any more time, let us step one step closer to the wisdom that was achieved under a Jangchub Shing by Prince Siddhartha with Doctor's penetrating authority and guidance. Before we begin our show, if Doctor has anything to say to our viewers.
Just happy to be here in Bhutan and happy to have a chance to offer some suggestions about the wonderful opportunity that everyone who lives in Bhutan and who has grown up with the Bhutanese culture has in our current moment on this planet. So I'm happy to contribute some advice on that score.
Dr. Thurman, to begin, today very auspiciously is the first day of the Sagadawa or Vaishak month, the holiest month in the Buddhist calendar. So can Doctor share with us the significance and the symbolism of this day and this month as a whole?
Yes. It is wonderful. The Vaishaka, as they say in Sanskrit, was the month the lunar month in which Shakyamuni Buddha, about almost 2,600 years ago, he attained unexcelled perfect enlightenment under the Jangchub Shing, the Bodhi tree, which is the name of this program, very auspiciously named, in Bodh Gaya by the Naranjana River. And after having spent 6 years in terrible asceticism, and before that 29 years as a party animal, and as a married man also, and a young warrior and so on, and thoughtful person. And it is really something, he is an extraordinary person in the history of this planet. And one of my main themes today in our dialogue, I will mention even now, which is that although Buddhism can be considered rightly a world religion, very much parallel with Christianity and Islam, the other more than 1 billion religions. So although that is the case, at this time in Vaisakha, under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha's revelation, if you will, and the foundation, therefore, of the movement that he founded in history, of which Bhutan is a product in a way, the culture of Bhutan is a product, it was not really a religious revelation, what we think of in modern terms, the way we define the word religious. In other words, the Buddha did not meet God, a creator God of some sort, and he did not get authority from that creator God. Now I'm in charge of the universe, and you shall be my prophet, and you tell people that if they believe in me, in my saving power, then they will achieve their wishes of being free from suffering. Shakyamuni Buddha did not have that experience. He had the opposite experience, actually. He did meet the being known as Brahma or Tsangpa, in Dzongkha, who other people in India at that time considered the creator God. But Brahma had a very strange statement for the Buddha, which was, I'm a benevolent God, but I don't have the power to control everything. There is no one who has that power. But you, Buddha, will have the understanding of how people can save themselves from suffering. And so I appreciate it if you would share that with people. And actually, please teach me. God asked Buddha to teach him how to be free from suffering. And also he said, please tell people when they do suffer and they have horrible things happen to them, it's not my fault because I'm not omnipotent. I didn't create their suffering. And we're all in this together kind of thing, which is a real shock for religious people who are sort of very strongly religious and believe that there is some sort of deity who can save them. Then Buddha was surprised and amazed by that, and then he went and he meditated under the tree, under the Jangchub Shing.
Yes. Doctor, all of this happened in this month.
Oh, well, yeah, no, he saw the Brahma before and he saw him after, actually. All the time he was seeing that god on and off, and also Indra, other gods. But anyway, in this time, he then had this experience where, from all his investigation of the nature of life, he finally understood how it worked. And then also he was very, very happy because he realized that the reality of life is happiness. It is bliss. It is the unreality. The suffering part is the unreality. So the reality part is always stronger than the unreality. Truth is always more powerful than the lie. And so he achieved an experience of what reality was, and that was a blissful experience for him. And so that's his good news, actually. His discovery, what makes Buddha unique among not world religious founders, but among world scientists, world teachers, like Einstein, for example, someone like that. That's the company that he's in, not only Jesus or Krishna or Lao Tzu or something like that in China. He's in the company also of the great scientists of the world who are seeking the discovery of reality. And actually he's the leader of those scientists, because, according to our belief, because he discovered the nature himself. He experienced it completely. He had the full experience, and in fact his experience is quite related to the experience of the contemporary scientists, in the sense that, take Einstein, he discovered relativity as a theory, but Buddha had the discovery of relativity as an experience, a full understanding. And so then based on that, he gave his Four Noble Truths teaching, he gave his emptiness teaching, he gave his selflessness teaching, and he gave his good news that the real nature of life is happiness. That's why in this month, under the Bodhi tree, but 15 days from now is the time we celebrated, at the full moon, he experienced nirvana. He didn't have to disappear to experience nirvana. Nirvana is not a destruction of the world, actually. He was there in the middle of the world. In fact, he spread everywhere in the world with that understanding, but he understood that. But then a very important thing to say is that his first statement was that he couldn't make other people understand that. He couldn't himself, just because he understood that, that didn't force other people to understand it. He could not save us, in other words. He said, I can't save you. He didn't put himself in the role of an omnipotent being, like a god who, I'm going to save everybody. He did not do that. He said, I cannot save you, actually. And actually, but the good news, you can save yourself. And how can you save yourself? You can become a Buddha yourself. You can become enlightened. Which doesn't mean you have a light pop off in your head or something magical. It means that you yourself understand the world and you understand yourself. When you do that, you will experience the complete happiness that I have experienced. You will experience nirvana yourself. But you have to make that effort yourself. This was very key. And this is why I always like to say, and this is what I think is very important for Bhutan, how Bhutan can complete its not only gross national happiness, but also refined personal happiness of its individual citizens. It can complete this by adding the scientific dimension of Buddhism, which is foundational in Buddhism, to the religious dimension of Buddhism. Bhutan has still alive, fortunately, the religious dimension. It has the monk body, it has the temples, it has the statues, it has the history of Buddha and so forth. But its education system is not delivering to the massive population the scientific dimension. And this is what I want. This is my theme of the different programs we will make today, and this program. And this, I think, should be the theme of this year's Vesak. We should realize, oh, holy, holy, Buddha, so holy, he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. Yes, we do realize that, and we feel faith, and we feel respect, and we feel moved by that, and we should. But what we should realize is, oh, under that Bodhi tree, that man, thousands of years ago, came to a perfect understanding of the nature of reality and said that it was good and it was happiness for all beings, and he in a way proclaimed gross planetary happiness for the world. And he also in that understanding understood that we have that capability of that understanding ourselves, and therefore he set out a system of education whereby we could come sometime or another, some life or another, to that understanding ourselves, as difficult as it might be for all of us. But the difficulty is worth the trouble because it's so rewarding. And so this is what we commemorate. This is what he founded that day under that tree. Although it wasn't the first time it was founded, he was the fourth person to make that teaching on this planetary history. And there will be another 995 of them, fortunately, in the future. We don't have to worry.
We have the temples, we have the monk body,
yes.
But in the same time, the whole idea behind this program is so that the people also comprehend the
yes.
Dharma, the main
right.
essence of it.
Good.
So along that line, first, it's an observation that I've made that first a person gets interested into Buddhism, yes. Then he gets into Buddhism, and yes. There is a general majority who tend to see Buddhism in a dissected form, as in, for instance, when I was doing a research on Doctor yourself, Doctor was put in as a Giluk scholar. So similarly, the kind of tradition we have here in Bhutan is Kaju. And then we have the Nyingma tradition.
Yes.
Then there is the Satya tradition.
Yes.
So if Doctor could share your perspective or about what the Buddha said about this sectarianism.
Thank you, Kamala. One important thing we have to know is that Shakyamuni Buddha was neither a Nyingmapa, nor a Kagyupa, nor a Gelugpa, nor a Zen Buddhist, nor a Sakyapa. He was a human being who had discovered the nature of reality. And then from that discovery, the different education systems and the different religious systems that have emerged in many, many countries over thousands of years, people have come to think of it as a membership in a kind of club, in a kind of denomination, what we would say, maybe religiously, or a sect, they even say, which I think is actually a wrong word to use the English word sect. It's better to use the English word order for the Kagyu, Sakya, Nyingma, Gelug. Order, like you see in Catholicism, they talk about Franciscan, Dominican, etc., and they refer to different orders because they're all part of Catholicism. When you begin to get into sect, you're using kind of a Protestant term where they're beginning to say, oh, the Catholics are not really Christian. The Catholics used to say anyway, oh, the Protestants are not really Christian. Then amongst each other, they used to really freak out. So sect means a division within a religious movement or a cultural movement where the two people on the two sides don't think the other one is of the same religion or the same movement. And that's too strong a division, you know. So I think order is better. Anyway, point is, Shakyamuni Buddha was none of them. And people can say I'm a Gelugpa, but I don't consider myself a Gelugpa, actually. I do not. I consider that some kind of membership in a club that I don't really belong in. In other words, I really like the great master Je Tsongkhapa. There's no question about it. I like His Holiness the Dalai Lama. But the Dalai Lama is the practitioner of Nyingma teaching, Kagyu, Sakya teaching, and also scientific teaching. He also supports the Bembos, the Christians, the Muslims. And this is how we have to be today in the modern world, and particularly in a democracy where you basically have separation of church and state, and you have the idea that there is no state religion. And although there may be a religion, the majority of a people in a state follow, but that the state doesn't enforce that religion against people who are in other religions. That's really, really important. And although I would say I have another idea there, which is that I also think it's not fair that one religion can go and tell people who belong to the other one that their religion is no good. That should be a civil rights violation, actually. So you cannot proselytize to the degree where, like, a Buddhist can tell a Christian they're all wrong and their religion is no good. They're going to hell or something. The Muslim cannot tell that to the Buddhist. The Buddhist cannot tell that to the Muslim. Christian cannot say it to the Muslim, etc. It's not the right time in history, and actually it's never been correct for people to go and attack each other's religions. And it will cause terrible conflict. It is causing terrible conflict in the world today. So that's the thing. Now, in the case of, however, Bhutan, if you consider the Buddhist claim that the Buddha made, that he understood the nature of reality accurately and precisely, like a successful scientist, more successful actually than the modern scientist, who says they have good theories, but none of them really still understands reality, and they even think that it's impossible to understand reality. They're trying to make a formula that will control everything, what they call the unified field theory, or the grand unified theory, GUT, the gut theory. They try to make like a theory, like a formula, mathematical or philosophical, and they make that effort, but they don't think it's possible to experience that. They don't practice meditation. They don't cultivate their mind in that way. They do actually meditate in their laboratories without thinking they're meditating, but they do. But they don't make that their method, unfortunately. So they have a theory that no one will ever understand. And they'll just learn to manipulate this piece and that piece and develop technology and do this and that powerful thing. So therefore everyone has to respect them because they can destroy everything, actually. But they have a theory that you can't understand. Also, religious people have a theory that you can't understand, only God understands. And anybody who says they understand is some kind of fanatic or heretic or crazy person. So this we have to realize. Buddha said, honestly, I do understand. But it's tricky because he said, what I understand, which is actual reality, cannot be captured in a theory. It's beyond theories. It's transcendental to theories, except for that theory, actually, the theory of emptiness, the theory of voidness, the theory that no theory captures reality. But the human being can understand that by experience without capturing it, because the human being is part of that reality. So this is really, it's tricky. In other words, he understands everything, but he's not claiming that he has a dogmatic theory that you just say, I repeat the theory, then I understand. No, you have to work with your own mind and your own intelligence and your own reasoning and your own concentration, and then you might be able to understand him when you become a Buddha. So he's unique between what the modern scientists say and what the religious people say. So and he has aspects of both sides. So that's where we have to celebrate him. He's unique on the world in that statement. And although actually later on many other people became Buddhas, and then they also became unique. And the great thing is you and I can become unique. Everybody can be unique. We all can be Buddhas. And actually that is the purpose of life, is to become a Buddha. Not only because we'll be happy when we understand everything, but also because based on that understanding, we can help others understand, and we can be effectively compassionate and helpful to them, and not harmful. So therefore, finally, my point here for Bhutan people is, not only should they go and pray at the temple on Sakadawa, and not only should they with deep devotion and reverence remember the great effort and the great mastery of the Buddha and all of his successors like Nagarjuna, Arya Sangha, the Bodhisattvas, Maitreya, Manjushri, Samantabhadra, and the great masters through history, like Drukpa Pema Karpo, like the Shabdung, a fantastic guy. He was like a superhero, that guy. Shabdung, a fantastic guy, and enlightened person. And also, many others, Tsongkhapa, Longchenpa, Padmasambhava, Sakya Pandita, etc., all the Dalai Lamas, all the Karmapas, all the many great people in Tibet, and many people in China, Japan, Korea, and India. Over the years, the great masters of Nalanda. So at this time of Sakadawa, we remember all of those people, and we feel great faith and devotion. But also, the real way to honor them is not only to feel faith and devotion in them, but is to learn something. Even one verse, even one line, if we learn the meaning of all things are selfless, because they lack intrinsic reality separate from relationships. There's nothing about anything that is separate from being related with everything else. And learn what that means, that one statement, for example. That's the highest way of honoring. As you know, the Buddha said in the Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Sherabchi Paradu Jimbe Do, he said, learning the meaning of one 4-line verse is better than filling the universe with jeweled stupas in honoring all the universe, all the Buddhas. Just learning the meaning of that is, because they don't need jeweled stupas. The Buddhas, you know, it's nice if people make them, and they make generosity, and they're beautiful, and it's important to remind people that there's a higher possibility in life, but the Buddhas don't really need them. What the Buddhas need is other beings to be happy by understanding. So therefore, learn something this Sakadawa. I challenge everyone in Bhutan, young and old, you know, monk or layman, or nun or laywoman, to learn something new that they didn't know before from the Buddha's teaching, especially about what is called Yandakpe Tawa. And Yandakpe Tawa means, you know, samyak dushti, realistic worldview. What is the real nature of the world? Something about that is to be learned, which doesn't necessarily mean learn something religious. It could be learn something scientific, but they should learn something.
And along that line of learning, yes, because to retrace the question that I put forward to Doctor, yes, while they learn all of this, to also learn, I think, if I'm not wrong, when Doctor was speaking about the people that they should pay homage to, like the Buddha, the Padmasambhava, yes, yes, Jangchub. So basically, Doctor went on to speak about all scholars from all schools, not, yes, differentiating.
Exactly.
So Doctor is sharing with us that actually this is just something that we've made up to, yes, confuse ourselves further. That's in this, right, in samsara.
And it's just a membership thing, like belonging to a club, like the red hat and the yellow hat. You know, that's, I do love His Holiness Dalai Lama. I'm very fond of him. He's kind of my guru nowadays. Previously, we were kind of like classmates, because, you know, he refused to be my guru, partly because I'm too stupid, and partly because he was feeling he was too young. He was only a few years older than me, so he had me study with his own teachers. But now he definitely is my guru, and he's way beyond me, 100 times, million times beyond me, so he's my guru. But one thing I liked in Kalachakra ceremony one time, he said, you know, because he's giving initiation, he said, now I'm your guru, so you should do what I say, which is just in the ritual, you know. Yes. So then he changed his tone of voice completely, and he says, except if I say something stupid, don't do it. And actually, some of the people in the ritual looked upset, like they want to think he's all-knowing authority or something, you know. So they didn't like it when he was like human and challenging them to think themselves. Then second thing, a little later moment, he puts on a hat, special Kalachakra hat, you know, like a Guru Rinpoche type of hat, but not Gelugpa hat actually, or Kagyu or anything, a Kalachakra hat. So he puts on this hat. He says, now I have to put on the hat, he says. Then he immediately takes off. He says, I don't like this hat. And he starts scratching his head. He says, hat makes my head itch, you know. I don't really like it. I have to do it, part of the ritual. And so in other words, he immediately sort of liberates people from sort of authority, from having to sort of think he's their boss. And I really like that. And I want to say this. I was just recently at one of his teachings in Switzerland, and he was teaching many non-Buddhists there, etc., about Atisha's statement. And Atisha was not a Kagyu, Sakya, nobody. His disciple Ramdamba founded Kadampa school, but also the Kagyu studied him. Dakpa Lhaje was educated as a Kadampa, and the Lukpa Kagyus were also, and the Digungbas, and they all studied Atisha's teaching. Everybody did. And so he was giving that teaching. And then he said, this thing really blew my mind. He said, please, you have to realize that Buddha's only desire is for the people he's talking to understand something. So actually Buddha said this famous thing like, you know, bhikshus, you know, mendicants, wise people are like a goldsmith They buy their gold only after they test the gold by cutting, burning, and rubbing it. And similarly, a wise person accepts something that I say after cutting it with the knife of their critical intellect, burning it in the fire of their experience, and rubbing it on the touchstone of whatever they've learned from other wise people. And then after that, they accept it, not out of respect or faith in me. And so he said, you have to realize that Buddha here is almost like begging his students. And then he, body language of His Holiness in that moment, he leaned over like this, like in a humble way, like you do when you're going lolus to somebody. And he said, please see if I said something wrong. Use your intelligence and criticize what I said if it doesn't make sense to you, and find out what makes sense to you. And then if I said something that makes sense, then you can use that in your life. And when he did that, I noticed people were uncomfortable, and some of them were teachers. I was sitting on stage because our old friend, I'm not a teacher properly, but I'm an academic teacher, but I'm not a guru, but I was sitting on stage. But I noticed that some look uncomfortable because being gurus, they want to be like, I know everything and you just listen to what I say and you do what I say. And Dalai Lama is saying, no, what Buddha himself said is please criticize what I said if I say something wrong. Because the point is, you have to make it your own by making it make sense to you. And then, with your understanding, it will change your life. It will not change your life just by depending on me. You know, that's a really important point. And also, that opens the door to something. I have something else I want to say, and we can return to this in other programs. That opens the door to something. In a secular state, because now Bhutan, by the wisdom of fourth king and fifth king, they want democracy and they want, people to be educated in a modern way. So in the school system, it has to be like secular school system. So people learn secular science. You go to classes in biology, physics, chemistry, and this sort of thing, I believe, right? And social science and so on, which is all good. But within that, there's a question of tawa, of realistic or unrealistic worldview. Yandak betawa and yandak maim betawa, log betawa, logta and yandak betawa. There is this kind of idea. And some things that are learned in the secular school are not just how to investigate chemistry and how to investigate biology and how to investigate physics. They come down like as if they were absolute truth. Only matter exists. There's no mind, for example. There's no spirit. There's no future life. You just die and you're nothing. And therefore you are nothing, actually. You're just some chemicals. And you're some neurons. You have a brain that is going like that, that's sort of like not as good as a Apple computer, and so forth. There are some things in there which are not actually discoveries of scientific people, but they are dogmatic theories, just like, church people might say, this is a dogma, that's a dogma. They're dogmatic theories. And so there is a way in which the Buddha Dharma can be taught as a biology, as a physics, as a psychology, and it should be taught. And Bhutan has the opportunity to create an education system that brings science into dialogue in the learning time, not just later when you're 90 years old and you've been like a chemist all your life and then finally you discover, oh gee whiz, there's some other kind of thing about the view of reality, in the learning experience, so that the young Bhutanese people who learn a modern thing can have an education even better than the secular education in America or a secular education, because they have the better scientists, which is Buddha, not asking them to believe something like in a religious way, but opening up an area of inquiry about the mind, especially about psychology and the mind. And this has to be taught in school, not as a religion, not as now we're going to religion class, but as philosophy / psychology / biology / physics / literature / history. And, the education body has to take responsibility to work with people learned in Buddhism to make secular Buddhism available in the schools. The Dalai Lama just wrote a book called Beyond Religion Toward a Secular Ethic, or some such expression like that. I forgot the subtitle. And he's working in that direction, just as a thinker, but he hasn't made that into a curriculum for the Tibetan schools either. The Tibetan schools in India also just teach modern materialist scientific education. And then they give a little history about Buddhism, but they don't teach it as Yandak Betawa Logta in Western science and in Buddhism as a science. And this is essential, and this is something Bhutan has the freedom to do.
And I don't know whether doctor is familiar with, because after we reach high school, actually we do have, I think, I don't know whether it will fall within the category of Yangdak Pigi Tawa, but after we reach the class 9th and 10th standards, we do have the Dzongkha classes divided into literature, as in we study about Ajinangsa Yubum, and then we study about Ajinangsa Yubum.
Oh, no, literature, yes, right. Right.
And then we have Geselalen.
Yes.
So for class 9 and 10...
Those are good. In the literature courses, that's good. However, have you ever heard of the expression, the biological theory of karma?
No.
Exactly. Because people think, oh, karma, oh, that's religious fate or something. We have to blindly believe karma. No, that's not correct. Karma means evolution, actually. Evolutionary action. What is biology? Biology means, logi part in English comes from logos, and it means the study of something. It's like it means the study of something. Bios means life. So it means the study of life. So that means it's supposed to be giving a scientific account of why there are different life forms, and why, like you Kamadendra, you have certain cheekbones, eyes, and ears, nose, you speak a certain language, you have like a stomach and a kidney and all that, and why do you do that? You're a human being and not a gorilla, you're not a takin, you have 2 feet, not 4 feet, etc. Then there's bacteria, and there's this and that. Biology is just that study. Now, Buddha's theory is the way you are what you are is not only because of the genes of your parents, the sabin, we would say, in Tibetan or Dzongkha, sabin, not only because of that, but because of your mind in previous life. You have a third gene. You have a gene that was your spiritual experience from previous life and your ethical experience. And you were a nice person. When you were a gorilla, which you were personally a gorilla, like Darwin discovered, not just your genes, you yourself, you were a chimpanzee, you were like a monkey. But when you're a monkey, you're a nice monkey. You didn't kill the other monkeys so badly. You let some monkey go you were tolerant, you were generous with the other monkey, you gave them a coconut, etc. So then somehow you became a little less hairy, you became like a little less angry, your teeth got shorter and weaker, and then you learned to talk because you hung out with other monkeys more, so you eventually got some language. Then you became a human being. So your mind, but many lifetimes you took. So your mind influenced your biology. So if there was a theory of biology that combined the gene theory about inheritance from parents with the spiritual rebirth theory of personally being involved in evolution, then that would be called karma. That's what Buddha's theory of karma is. And of course, it's not an absolute dogma, just like Darwin's thing is not an absolute dogma. No one in Darwin proved that Darwin himself in previous life wasn't a monkey. Yes. He was an Englishman with a beard, he had a lot of hair. He might have been a gorilla in previous life. No one proved that he wasn't. They just say he wasn't, because against Christianity and against religion, they want to say no soul, no future life. The religion didn't prove that, so we don't believe in that. But the point is, they didn't prove no future life either. That's not proven. Nobody proved that. Who could ever prove it, actually?
Doctor, this biology of karma, this karmic biology, is this like an established syllabus or a curriculum that has been developed, or is this something new that doctor is working on? Or are there people in the world right now working on this?
As usual, a good answer is yes and no. The yes part is, in the Nalanda University of ancient India, and in the great Datsangs in the Bhutan and in Tibet and in Mongolia in the past, this is karmic biology was studied. In other words, why someone looks like this, why someone looks like that, why someone is like intelligent and someone isn't intelligent, the differences in the life forms, why this animal is like this and this one is like that. That was their study of karma. And it's an Abhidharma study, and it was an established curriculum. And it was not simply dogmatically adopted by the learned people as, it's just a fate, or it's just like God or something, or like some omnipotent force that no one can understand. Was studied as a specific empirical discipline. And the future life, for example, of people was accepted on the evidence of people remembering previous lives, of people, and also of reasoning that there's no possibility of any something ever becoming nothing, a kind of law of the conservation of energy like the physicists have. Something can never be nothing because nothing isn't there. So you can't be nothing. It's a mistaken expression to say, well, I found nothing, you say. It just means you didn't find something. You didn't actually find nothing. If you say, I found nothing, we will say that word, but then someone else will say, well, show me that nothing. You can't, because you can't find nothing, actually. So therefore, no one can ever prove that nothing exists. In fact, someone who would try to prove that nothing exists would be insane. They'd be going crazy all their life because they never find it. They should know that ahead of time, because it doesn't exist, right? So yes, it was established curriculum in the Buddhist universities from ancient time, and in some Hindu ones probably, and maybe some Taoist ones in China, but mostly in the Buddhist ones. And no, in the modern period, it has not been established because the modern thing was made up by Western people who were doing science as a rebellion against Christian dogma. Nowadays, it has become, like in my university in the West, where the scientists are like the Pope, they're like the high priest. And they say, we insist there's no life, future life. We insist there's no mind. It's just a brain. We insist this and that, as if they had discovered that. But the fact is they have not discovered that. There's no proof of any of those statements. They're dogmatic statements, like church dogmas. And therefore, to learn science properly, which is as a method of inquiry, method of investigation, like vipassana, seeking the nature of reality, you can't accept dogmas. And Buddha knew that a long time ago. Emptiness means, the teaching of Shunyata, Tombanyin, means that all things are empty of any fixed essence that could correspond to a fixed dogmatic description. So therefore, no theory can absolutely pinpoint the nature of reality except for that theory which is a negation of the power of theories and the power of concepts. But it doesn't mean they're powerless. They're still very important. But we must never be trapped into making any of them an absolute. So no one is saying that karma biology is absolutely true and materialist biology is absolutely untrue. Both of them are more or less perfect. They have good points and bad points. However, it could be that the karma theory has one superior point to the materialist theory, in that it doesn't presuppose a dogma of no mind, no former and future life. It's still looking at the question. It's still investigating it. And that's what we should be doing. They should be investigating that. All they say is there's no evidence for future life. But there's a huge evidence for future life. There are millions of people who have remembered previous lives. And they have yet to prove that those memories are false. And there are many of them. Like a woman who as a small child says, I'm not really a member of your family. I live in Tashigang, and I want to go back and see my Aunt Joe's, Aunt Bumla, and Aunt this, and Aunt Uncle that, and I have something very important to tell them. And then finally they take them on a bus, and they go over there, and then they run in and they dig in the ground under the family house, and they find like 10,000 ngutrim that grandmother saved over her whole lifetime, and died suddenly with a stroke and didn't tell the people that she was saving this money. And she just wanted to go tell them, and a little girl comes and says, there you have the money, and they find the money. How are these scientists who say there's no future life going to explain that? All they do is say, they made it all up. They're liars, they just say. But that's just their dogma. They have no proof. And why would they lie? And how would she know the money was there? Anyway, and in a Buddhist culture, she doesn't get on television. She doesn't get a reward from the king for that. The family gets the money. She doesn't even get the money. She's in another family. right? So what I'm saying is, so the no part is that the materialist curriculum in the sciences that are in this school, in the schools here, and in the schools of the Tibetan exiles, and in the communist schools in Tibet, whatever, such as they are, very few actually, and in Mongolia, they are teaching they are teaching a mixture of good things, which is scientific investigation of how the world works, which we applaud, and that's totally in our ballpark. But they're adding to it certain dogmas, which are logta, without challenge, without investigation. And it doesn't have to be like a graduate school, PhD investigation. It's just that in that time they question it a little bit. They say, well, we're not sure about this. We're looking at that. This is, and there's another explanation for why people are like they are. And so people are open-minded. And this is a curriculum that will be established here in Bhutan, and eventually in Tibet, and in Mongolia, and in exile in the world, and eventually in America. Because the materialists are not actually managing the planet properly. They have created weapons that are too powerful, nuclear reactors that are in the middle of earthquake zones and that blow up and ruin the agriculture of an entire country for hundreds of years. They are creating global warming, which is wrecking the glacier here that gives you your water in the dry season. Up in Tibet, the glaciers are melting. They're melting the Arctic ice cap. That's all this industrial materialist culture operating on the engine of Lokta. And it is your responsibility of your gross national happiness here in Bhutan to make an education system that combines the best, the most reasonable aspects of the Nalanda University education system, karma system, for example, in the case of biology and philosophy, with the best of scientific modern system, and combine them, not just create the same kind of person in Bhutan that we have in America and England and Japan and everywhere, which is, maybe I go to the temple on the Sakadawa and say, I love you, Buddha, and pray to Buddha, and have lunch with the monks. And then when I'm in my regular life, I'm just a materialist. I want more cars, I want more houses, I want more money. Because I'm gripped by Lokta. We don't want to create this split person. And Bhutan has the opportunity not to create that because it has a cultural pride in its Bhutanese culture. And its Bhutanese culture is not just wearing a go and wearing socks and going lam lam and Buddha Buddha, Sanjay Sanjay. That's not Bhutanese culture. Or I'm Kagyu or Sakya or Gelok or Nyingma or whatever I am. Bhutanese culture is Yandak Betawa. Is Parlam Yanlag Ye, first branch of which is Yandak Betawa. That's a very important aspect of Bhutanese culture and must not be neglected or reserved only to the few high studying members of the monk body. It's for all the people. Yandak Betawa has to be democratized.
Doctor was speaking to us about the past life and then the future life, and even went on to give this very vivid example of this woman who had some money buried in the thing.
Many cases like that.
So along the lines of proper understanding and what this program hopes to achieve, why is it important? The reason why I refrain from asking this question is because I don't think there is a short answer to this question.
There is a short answer.
Why is it important for us or for anybody to believe in a fact, in a life after death?
Or to investigate and to be open to it. We don't have to necessarily be open to it. We don't have to necessarily just believe. Okay, why it is important is the following reason. It is the ground foundation of ethics. The trouble with materialism in regard to being a foundation for ethics is that what you do only affects you for whatever amount of years you have to live. So if you rob something and get away with it and then live comfortably as a rich person because you robbed something and you shot the guy so he couldn't complain or whatever, or you killed somebody and you get away with it, then when you die, there's no consequence. So you're free, you're scot-free. You're the same nothing as the person you killed, as the person you robbed. So this creates a kind of recklessness which is destroying the planet, actually. It is the heart of American culture. A macho, Rambo culture. Let's bomb everybody, destroy Baghdad, what the hell, who cares? Go for it, go for the gold. All this kind of slogan is kind of recklessness We just don't want pain, of course, but, you know, bang, shoot yourself even, because then you're just nothing. Because essentially you are nothing under that lokta, you understand? So that makes for an unethical society, an unethical individual, or rather a superficially ethical, because there's no deep long-term reason for out of enlightened self-interest, in addition to caring for others, to really be ethical. Whereas in the case of us being relativistically embedded in life forever, then there's a reason to become a Buddha, to find nirvana. Then there's a reason to be really good in this life, and every small little thing matters. It's not just that matter matters, everything matters. Every word, every gesture, every thought matters. And so that's really important, and we can talk about this in another program in more detail, why it matters. It's the ground of ethics. And we're going to talk in another program about the tenfold path of positive and negative evolutionary action, or karma, right? And we will talk about that. And thank you very much for this program. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, Karma Dandabla.
We will be continuing a very interesting conversation with Dr. Robert Thurman. And to end this episode, as always, our Jangchub Shing slogan, which is right up the alley of what Doctor was speaking about what His Holiness was also speaking about: analyze and realize. Thank you for watching.